Did you realize that right in here is one of the most famous land art projects in the United States?
No, I had no idea. Really?
You ever heard anything about it?
Not a thing. What is it?
There is a kind of ongoing aspect of things that fascinate me. And I'm preoccupied with that process, more or less introducing the entropic aspect into structures and into my work, so that those natural forces do interact in a kind of entropic way. The recent eruptions outside of Iceland at Vestmann Islands, where an entire community was submerged in these black ashes, created a kind of buried house system. It was quite interesting for a while. You might say that provided a temporary kind of buried architecture, which reminds me of my own partially buried woodshed out in Kent State, Ohio, where I took 20 cartloads of earth and piled them on this woodshed until the central beam cracked.
Well, the students and I invited Bob Smithson out for a week, and we'd asked him to think of something he could make while he was here, rather than just critique the students. And he finally said, well, he always wanted to bury a building. And we said, fine, we'll try and find you a building.
He originally wanted to do an asphalt pour, but it was too damn cold and couldn't find a suitable hill to do it. But talking to the class, and as he came into the area, he noticed that all these little outbuildings, you know, were kind of, once prosperous farmland, were sort of deteriorating. And so he thought, he'd kind of speed it up.
There was an old farmhouse and some garages, and this old building in the back that they'd been stacking a lot of firewood in. And the university had just bought these because it was expanding, and they said, well, if you want to use that woodshed, you can. He had a sketchbook, and he was doing a lot of drawings of how he wanted this woodshed to be. And he was very good at explaining it to everyone, that he wanted to pile this earth on the corner of the woodshed until this big main beam that ran across the front cracked.
It started very early. And then it went on through the day until I think it was done in the afternoon. It was very, very cold. And everyone was standing around waiting, watching it being done. I forgot exactly how many truckloads it took. I think maybe 20.
Piled it until the beam cracked. Bob was running around taking photographs. And then that evening we all got together, the students and everyone got together back at my house again, and we said, okay, so what do you want to happen to it? And he said, well, he wanted it to acquire its own history. He wanted nothing to be done to it, just to allow it to to go back to the earth.
So in a sense it's dialectical rather than conceptual. What the site will be rather than what it is. So it's not a matter of finish, it's a matter of ongoingness.
Smithson chose to make a piece that would show a concept. In this case, the concept was entropy, the dissolution and decay of matter over time. Hardly anybody appreciated the woodshed. There were only a few people in the School of Art who appreciated the woodshed.
And you know, we're out in Ohio. There were a few of us who knew about conceptualism, but there were a lot of people who weren't necessarily in the art school who would write, "What is this thing? It doesn't look good. Get rid of it."
It was a very, very conservative time. It still is, God. But it was very conservative then, and that was the objection, that it was not art. And that was the, how can this be art?
I didn't want to go to university administrators and argue that they should leave a rotten building that had had earth piled on it in what was going to be a fairly prominent part of the university.
One way of ensuring that the university would respect the work is to place a monetary value on it.
I asked Bob to put a price on it. He got his Dwan Gallery to write that it was valued at $10,000. They wouldn't accept it into the university collection, but they did agree that they wouldn't do anything to it until they needed the land to build a new building on. And then it started to accrue this sort of history. Well, 3 months later, Kent State. It started on the Friday, the first really good weekend of the year. May the 1st, I think, there was a little demonstration on campus.
There were rougher demonstrations at Ohio State, but Kent had ongoing demonstrations to protest against the war. And then finally, it gained a lot of momentum. The bombing of Cambodia, just everything went off.
And by Friday evening, the local law enforcement had moved in.
The ROTC building was set on fire. And the police department, the fire department came to put out the fire. The hoses were hacked, and no one was unhappy to see the ROTC building gone. What's ironic is that there's a big Teamsters strike in Cleveland. The National Guard were not armed, putting that down. And then they end up on the Kent campus with guns.
On Monday, there was going to be a meeting on the Commons, which is this big green area on campus. And I don't think anyone had arranged it. I think everybody knew there had to be a meeting. And that's when the shootings occurred.
Soldiers and Texans gone. We're finally on.
The National Guard killed 4 students and had shot 10 others. Students were crying. Nobody knew what was going on. It was unbelievable.
When the university shut down, it sent all the students home. During that time,